What kind of manager tells a cashier to clock out and mop the restroom while she's eating her lunch? Kellan Rivers stared at the grainy footage on his laptop in disbelief. A few weeks back, customer reviews across his 7 fast casual sandwich shops had started to dip, not dramatically, but enough to concern him. Location 4 in Eastwood had the most complaints, mostly about long wait times and rude staff. But this clip? It was from Location 6 in Bayfield, and it wasn't about customers, it was about how employees were treated. Kellan built this company from a single food truck 12 years ago. He'd worked every position, grilled sandwiches in winter, ran deliveries in the rain, scrubbed floors when nobody else showed up. Success came fast after year 5, and he expanded to 7 locations across the state. He stopped working on site about 2 years ago, focusing on expansion and investor meetings. But lately, he felt that something was slipping. He'd always hired local managers and trusted district leads to keep each store running. But trust only went so far. Second-hand reports weren't cutting it anymore. So he made a decision. Go undercover. He shaved the beard, dyed the gray in his hair, and swapped his tailored blazer for a worn hoodie and basic jeans. His assistant crafted a fake employee profile, Kyle Robertson, a transfer trainee from a now-closed franchise. Since none of the Bayfield employees had ever met him in person, and given how much the company had grown, it was easy for him to blend in. He even wore glasses he didn't need. It was a Thursday morning when Kellan walked into the Bayfield location. The place was already buzzing, but something felt off. The crew looked tired. Nobody smiled. A customer at the door held it open for him. No employee even acknowledged the gesture. Behind the counter, a tall, stocky man barked orders without looking up from his tablet. "You the new guy?" the man asked, eyes still on the screen.
"Yeah, Kyle."
"Transfer trainee."
"Cool."
"I'm Dean, store manager." "Don't expect hand-holding. Follow Maribel around today. She's on register." Before Kellan could ask anything, Dean turned and walked into the back, slamming the office door behind him. Maribel stood at register 2, restocking the receipt paper. She looked up, gave a quick smile. "Hey, Kyle. You worked the registers before?" "Yeah, a bit."
"Cool.
"I'll walk you through our system."
It's easy."
"You'll get the hang of it." She was maybe mid-20s, a little underdressed for the weather, and moved like someone always in a rush. But there was kindness in how she talked to customers, even the rude ones. Kellan spent the next hour shadowing her, watching her ring up orders, handle complaints, and keep things moving despite being clearly understaffed. "Why is it so short today?" he asked during a lull. "2 people quit last week. 1 got sick." "Dean won't approve overtime," she said, voice low. "So?"
"Yeah."
"We make do." He nodded, biting back his frustration. That explained the slow service complaints. At noon, the line was out the door. Kellan jumped in to help bag orders while Maribel worked the register non-stop. Around 1, Dean appeared again, grabbed something from the office, and barked, "Maribel, break." She glanced at the line, then at Kellan. "You good?" "I got it," he said. She stepped into the back and was gone for maybe 5 minutes. When she returned, she wasn't holding food, just a water bottle. Kellan noticed. "You not eating?" She shrugged. "Didn't bring lunch today." "It's fine." He didn't press, but it stuck with him. Around 2, the rush slowed. A young woman came in with a toddler on her hip. Her hoodie was thin. The kid had mismatched shoes. Kellan watched as Maribel greeted her like an old friend. "Hey, Nina. You okay?" The woman looked embarrassed. "Got delayed with the interview. Missed the food bank hours." Maribel didn't hesitate. She turned, reached under the counter, and pulled out a wrapped sandwich, chips, and a juice box. Kellan blinked. That was the same combo he saw her pull from her locker earlier, her lunch. The woman's eyes welled up.
"Marie."
"You can't keep." "It's okay," Maribel said softly. "You've got Gabe to feed." "I'll be all right." The toddler, Gabe, reached for the juice. Maribel handed it to him with a smile, then waved off the mother's protests. Kellan watched the whole thing unfold. She hadn't looked around. She hadn't hesitated. She just gave it away. He felt something tighten in his chest. She gave away her own lunch without thinking. Not for praise. Not for attention. Just because it was the right thing to do. And Dean? He was nowhere in sight. Kellan stepped outside, pretending to take a call, but really just needed a moment. He couldn't ignore this anymore. Something was broken here. And someone was holding this place together with sheer will. He glanced through the window at Maribel, still wiping down the counter, still smiling at customers. That woman deserved better. And he was going to make damn sure she got it. Kellan showed up the next morning 15 minutes early. The store lights were still off, but Maribel was already sitting on the curb near the delivery entrance, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands, sipping something from a paper cup. He approached slowly.
Hey.
You always get here this early? She looked up, startled at first, then nodded.
Yeah.
Helps to set the tone. You never know what you're walking into. He sat on the curb beside her, careful to keep his distance. Rough mornings. She laughed quietly.
Some.
Depends on who shows up. Or doesn't. Before he could say more, a car pulled up and a young guy jumped out, earbuds in, apron already tied around his waist. He gave a brief nod and disappeared around the side of the building. Maribel stood and stretched. That's Malik. He's solid when he's here. Just don't ask him to mop. He acts like it's beneath him. Noted. Inside, the opening checklist sat half-finished on the stainless prep counter. Kellan noticed the sink still had last night's dishwater in it, and someone had left lettuce bins uncovered in the walk-in. Maribel sighed and got to work without comment. He followed her lead, grabbing gloves and sanitizing the trays. By the time the doors opened, the team was still short. Malik handled the grill, Kellan took register 1. Maribel bounced everywhere else restocking sauces, answering the phone, even running a mobile order out to a car herself when the driver bailed halfway through the bagging. At 11:30, Dean finally surfaced. He walked in through the back door, still chewing something from a paper wrapper, and dropped his keys on the prep table. Why aren't the napkin bins full? He asked, voice too loud for the size of the room. Maribel met his eyes calmly. We've been juggling everything since open. I'll get to it. Dean looked at Kellan.
You.
New guy. Stock them now. Kellan didn't argue. He moved to the supply shelf, but not before catching the look Malik shot. Dean's eyes rolled, had slightly tilted like this kind of tone wasn't new. He stocked the bins, quietly observing. Dean didn't lift a hand. Instead, he parked himself at the back counter with his tablet and occasionally barked orders without checking whether they made sense. At one point, Malik called out, "We're out of provolone in the prep bin." Dean didn't look up, then used cheddar. That's not what the customer ordered. Too bad. We're not running to the walk-in every 5 minutes. Kellan watched as Malik bit his tongue and walked off. A minute later, he handed off the sandwich with the wrong cheese anyway. The customer noticed. This isn't what I asked for. I know, Malik muttered. Manager's call. Saw the... No apology from Dean. No attempt to fix it.
Kellan stepped in.
We can make it right for you. Just give me a sec. He remade the order himself while Dean scrolled through something on his phone. The customer left satisfied, but Kellan's jaw was tight. After the rush passed, Maribel pulled him aside near the beverage station. You're gonna get in trouble if you keep doing things your way, she said quietly. He raised an eyebrow. You mean? Doing what makes sense. She hesitated, then nodded.
Yeah.
That. You ever think about quitting? She exhaled. Almost every week.
But
I can't.
Not right now.
He didn't press. Instead, he asked, What's with the cameras? There's like 15 in the ceiling. She looked up. Dean had them installed 3 months ago.
Said it was to prevent theft.
But he checks them obsessively. Sometimes rewind shifts just to call people out. Is that even allowed? She gave a tired half shrug. I don't know. It's not like he's subtle about it. He watches breaks like a hawk. One girl got written up for stretching during a lull. Later that afternoon, a delivery driver arrived with the weekly produced shipment. Kellan offered to help unload, and as he scanned the boxes, he noticed several items weren't on the order sheet: 3 extra cases of bottled drinks and a 12-pack of imported sparkling water that none of their shops carried. He flagged the driver. Hey, are these for us? The guy double-checked the order sheet. Says Bayfield unit, yeah. Manager signed for M last week too. Kellan nodded slowly. Right. He helped carry the boxes inside. Dean met them at the back. When Kellan pointed out the odd items, Dean waved him off. That's owner stock.
Don't worry about it.
Owner stock.
Yeah.
I keep some things off the books. Don't overthink it. Kellan held his gaze. Got it. He didn't press further. But he made a mental note of the labels. Imported, boutique brands, all pricey. Not something a fast casual sandwich shop would normally carry. At closing time, Maribel stayed behind to finish dishes. Kellan offered to help, but she waved him off.
Go rest.
You're back to back already. He lingered at the doorway. You always this committed? She didn't look up. I don't like leaving things halfway. Dean passed by on his way out, holding a duffel. Don't forget to mop the walk-in floor. It smelled off yesterday. Maribel nodded, without saying a word. Outside, Kellan sat in his car for 10 minutes before driving off. He was supposed to rotate to another store soon, but something told him Bayfield needed more than just a drop-in check. The next morning, he skipped the early arrival and walked in right at open. Dean wasn't there. Malik was late. Maribel ran the place with 2 others, both teenagers who looked like they'd never worked food service before. At 11, a woman in her 60s came in with a cane and struggled to read the menu. Kellan stepped forward. Take your time. Want some help choosing? She nodded. Something soft. I just had dental surgery. He helped her select a soup and sandwich combo and offered to cut the sandwich into smaller pieces. She smiled, grateful. But as he rang her up, Dean reappeared behind the counter. We're not a nursing home, man. Move the line. Kellan didn't even turn around. She's a paying customer. She's holding up 5 orders. Maribel, who'd just come out from the back, froze mid-step. The woman looked embarrassed. Kellan turned. Then maybe we should have staffed better. Dean stepped closer. You got a problem?
Ida.
And you're it. Dean laughed. You don't get to say that. You're a trainee. Kellan took a breath, stepped forward, then leaned in just enough. I'm not a trainee.
I'm Kellan Rivers.
I own this company. The silence that followed was absolute. Malik, who just walked in with his apron in hand, stopped dead. Maribel stood perfectly still, eyes darting between them. Dean's mouth opened, shut, then opened again. This some kind of joke? I wish it was, Kellan said. You've got 30 seconds to step into the back office. Or I'll call security myself. Dean didn't move. Kellan turned to Maribel. Can you join us? You've earned that much. Inside the office, Kellan shut the door and locked it. You've been mismanaging inventory, mistreating staff, and violating multiple customer policies. I've got footage, receipts, and first-hand accounts. Dean sat down, suddenly pale. I've run this store for 3 years, and you'll be clearing your locker by this afternoon. Dean's voice rose. You don't even know what it takes to run this place. I built this place, Kellan said flatly. From a truck. Don't talk to me about what it takes. He turned to Maribel. You're acting manager, effective immediately. We'll bring in a support team to help rebalance shifts. I'm staying on site until we stabilize. Her hands trembled slightly. What about payroll approvals? You'll have direct access. And back pay for every extra hour you worked off the clock. Dean stood abruptly. You'll regret this. Kellan didn't flinch.
No.
But you might. He opened the office door. Dean stormed out. Back in the kitchen, Kellan addressed the staff. Things are going to change. Starting now. And for the first time since he'd walked through those doors, he saw something new on their faces: hope. Saturday morning came with a different weight. Kellan stood outside the Bayfield store 10 minutes before open, hands in his jacket pockets, watching the sunrise skim across the front glass. The energy in the team had shifted, cautious, uncertain, but alert. They didn't know yet what the new rules were. And he didn't expect anyone to trust him just because he'd revealed who he was. That would take time. And action. Inside, the lights were already on. Maribel was at the prep counter, sleeves rolled up, layering breakfast sandwiches with quiet focus. She glanced up as he entered. "You're early," she said. "So are you." "I don't sleep much when my brain won't shut off." He nodded. "You're not alone in that." They worked in silence for a few minutes. Then she said, "I keep waiting for the rug to be pulled." "It won't be." Maribel didn't respond right away. Then, "Yesterday was the first time in months I didn't feel like I was failing at everything." "You were never the problem." She didn't answer, just went back to work. By the time the doors opened, Malik had arrived and was restocking the chip wall. 2 new hires, Lena and Tyrese, were scheduled to shadow today. Both were referrals from Maribel. They'd start with short shifts, mostly support tasks. Kellan had spent the night reviewing labor budgets and found enough flexibility to bring on 2 part-timers without tipping into overtime strain. It wouldn't solve everything, but it would give the team breathing room. A customer entered right at open. An older man in a worn denim jacket, weather hands, and a heavy limp. He moved slowly, scanning the menu with hesitation. Kellan stepped up.
Morning.
"Can I help you choose something?" The man nodded. "Something soft. Had jaw surgery last month." Kellan turned to the back. "Soup batch ready?" Maribel called out. 10 more. He turned back. "We'll have fresh soup in 10. I can get you a warm sandwich with soft bread in the meantime." The man nodded again. "Whatever's easiest." "Appreciate it." Kellan handed off the order to Malik and rang it up. The man pulled out a few crumpled singles, then paused. "Forgot tax adds up. I'll just take the sandwich." "It's covered," Kellan said, sliding the receipt across. "We're running a pay-it-forward promo this week." The man looked up, startled. "That right?" "Sure is." After he left, Malik leaned over. "There's no promo, is there?" "Nope." Malik grinned. "Good." By mid-morning, the difference in tempo was noticeable. Tyrese had taken quickly to cleaning tasks, quietly handling spills and wiping tables without being asked. Lena had a natural eye for presentation, helping Maribel reorganize the beverage cooler so labels faced forward and expired items were pulled. Kellan watched them work, resisting the urge to jump in. Part of leadership was knowing when to get involved and when to trust. At 11, a man in a company logo fleece walked in with a clipboard. He introduced himself as Roger from Corporate Facilities, there to inspect the building's HVAC system after a string of customer complaints about the heat on colder mornings. Kellan walked him through the back service hallway and unlocked the maintenance closet. The system hadn't been touched in months. Dust coated the intake vent, and one of the filters was jammed in sideways. Roger whistled. "This should have been logged weeks ago." "I'm guessing nobody filed a work order?" "Not from this location. You'd have seen it in the system." Kellan frowned. "Can you forward me the photos?" "I'll handle it." Roger nodded and got to work. When Kellan returned to the front, 2 customers were arguing near the condiment station. One was a younger man in a fitted coat, the other an older woman pulling her scarf tighter. "You bumped into me and didn't even say excuse me," she said. The man glared. "I didn't touch you. Maybe watch where you stand." Kellan stepped forward. "Is there an issue?" "She shoved me," the man snapped. On purpose. That's not what I saw, Lena said, gently but clearly. You cut in line and pushed around her. She didn't even react until now. The man turned to her. Mind your business. That is my business, she replied. I work here. Kellan stepped in. Sir, we can remake your order if you'd like, or offer a refund. But I can't allow disrespect to staff or customers. The man scoffed. You're throwing me out? I'm asking you to leave. The man muttered something under his breath and stormed out. The older woman looked shaken. Maribel brought her a fresh drink and walked her to a table near the window. Thank you, Lena said as Kellan returned to the counter. You did the right thing. Always speak up. She nodded, but her hands were trembling slightly. After the lunch rush, Kellan pulled up the staff schedule in the back office. The gaps were clear. Sunday and Monday were still fragile, especially with Malik only available part-time. Maribel leaned in over his shoulder. What if I pick up Monday morning? Just the first half. You don't need to fill every hole. I know, but I'd rather be here than wonder if it's going to fall apart again. He looked at her closely. We'll bring in a temp from the training store. You can take Monday to breathe. She opened her mouth to argue, then paused. All right, but only if they're solid. They are. At 4, a man in a blue delivery van pulled up with a supply shipment. Kellan stepped outside to help unload. You early, Kellan noted. Bayfield always gets shorted, so I started bumping you up, the driver said. Last guy used to skim off the top and blame the warehouse. Kellan froze. What do you mean? I dropped full crates. Next week, inventory would be missing, but Dean never filed claims. Just said it never showed. I flagged it once, but got told to mind my lane. By who? Your district lead. Said it wasn't worth the noise. Kellan nodded slowly. Thanks. He sent a message to his assistant before the driver left. Pulled Bayfield inventory logs versus delivery records for the last 6 months. Flagged discrepancies. At closing, Kellan stayed behind to help clean. Tyrese and Lena clocked out, both smiling as they left. Maribel and Malik handled the last of the prep trays. Out of nowhere, Malik asked, You ever think about expanding? Kellan looked up. You mean this location?
No.
I mean taking this energy, this way of running things, and bringing it to the other stores. Because, whatever this is, it works. Kellan leaned against the counter. What would that look like to you? Managers who listen. Staff that get hours without begging. A kitchen where you don't feel like a cog. Maribel added, and someone who notices when people are drowning instead of blaming them for the flood. Kellan nodded slowly. Then that's exactly what we'll build. He pulled out a worn notepad from his pocket. I want your input. What needs to change physically, culturally, structurally? Don't hold back. They stared at him for a moment, unsure if he was serious. Then Maribel said, We need a functioning headset for drive-through. Ours cuts out every third word. Malik added, The fryer timer's busted. Been guessing on cook times. Kellan jotted it all down. By the time they finished for the night, the air felt different. Not lighter, but clearer. Like the fog was lifting. As they stepped outside together, Maribel turned to him. You're staying through the weekend? Longer if I need to. She hesitated. If you're serious about turning this place around, it's going to take more than one of these notebooks.
I know, he said.
But it's a start. They parted ways at the curb. A few blocks down, Kellan parked again, engines still running. He pulled out his phone and opened a message draft to his executive team. Subject: Immediate review of store-level oversight attached. Footage, notes, personnel actions at the bottom. He typed, We owe our best people more than survival. From now on, we lead with presence, not policy. He hit send, then sat back in the dark, thinking about everything still ahead. The following Monday, Kellan arrived before sunrise, parking in the far corner of the Bayfield lot. The morning air was cold and sharp. He didn't go inside right away. Instead, he watched as the crew arrived one at a time, shoulders hunched against the wind, some carrying coffees, others just wearing determination. Maribel showed up last, 20 minutes before open, with a small binder under her arm and a line of fatigue beneath her eyes. She paused at the entrance, glanced back at the parking lot, then went inside. Kellan followed a minute later. Inside, the store was quiet but organized. The air smelled like bleach and fresh bread. Maribel was at the prep sink, flipping through a stack of laminated diagrams. "Morning," Kellan said. She looked up, surprised. "Didn't think you'd be in today. You're acting manager. I'm shadowing you now." She blinked. "Seriously? You're running the floor. I'm here to support." She put down the binder. "All right then. I've got today mapped out." By 8, the doors were open. The first hour was steady, just a few commuters, one regular who ordered the same egg sandwich every Monday, and a woman with a stroller who thanked Maribel by name. Lena clocked in right on time, already tying her apron as she walked in. She gave Kellan a quick nod, then headed straight to the back for restock. At 9:30, a man in khakis and a branded fleece stepped in. He introduced himself as Craig, the district supervisor. Kellan had summoned him for an audit of Bayfield's last 3 months, but had mentioned he'd be on site. Craig did a double take when he saw Kellan behind the counter. "You're here?" "I am. You got my message." Craig shifted uncomfortably. "I assumed it was a formality." "It's not." Kellan led him to the back office, motioning for Maribel to join. Once the door closed, he opened a folder and laid out printed invoices, delivery logs, and camera stills. "These are inventory mismatches from the last quarter. They align with delivery days and coincide with non-coded items being signed in off books." Craig barely looked at the files. "It's small scale, not worth escalation." "No, it's theft," Kellan said. "And you ignored it." Craig's tone shifted. "I didn't ignore it. I prioritized bigger risks." "You ignored a pattern of abuse, falsified reports, and a manager skimming from the store. That's not prioritizing. That's negligence." Craig shook his head. "You can't expect every store to be perfect." Kellan's voice was low and direct. "I expect accountability. And I expect leadership." Maribel stayed silent, her arms crossed. Kellan turned to her. "How many times did you raise concerns to Craig?" "Twice," she said. "First time he said he'd look into it. Second time, I never heard back." Craig tried to interject, but Kellan held up a hand. "You're relieved of oversight. Effective immediately." Craig straightened. "You're kidding." "I'm not. Leave your tablet. We'll send you your final paperwork." Craig stared at him for a beat too long, then set the tablet on the desk and walked out without another word. When the door closed, Maribel let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "You good?"
Kellan asked.
"I'm fine. Just. That guy made it feel like nothing I said would ever matter." "It matters now." By 11, the store was busy again. Malik was on grill, Lena ran the front, and Tyrese had picked up an extra shift to support lobby cleanup. The rhythm was smoother, but the cracks were still visible. Malik's hands moved slower than usual, and Lena paused twice to shake out her wrist from the register strain. Kellan pulled Maribel aside, near the supply closet. "I want to test something. You up for it?" She looked wary. "What kind of test?" "Let's see how much this crew can handle when they're not stretched too thin." He called in a favor. 2 cross-trained employees from the training center arrived an hour later. One took over the register, giving Lena a break. The other stepped into prep. For the first time in weeks, no one ran. By early afternoon, the atmosphere had shifted further. Conversations started happening between orders. Malik asked Tyrese about a music playlist. Lena offered to show the new register hire how to flag allergy alerts. Around 2:30, an older man with a worn briefcase stepped inside. He hesitated at the counter, then said he was there about a job posting. Maribel stepped forward and guided him to a corner table with a paper application and pen. Later, when she brought it to Kellan, he raised an eyebrow. He's got 20 years in food service, managed 2 kitchens, and he's willing to close and clean. Kellan nodded. Set up a trial shift. Let's see how he fits. At 4, a delivery woman entered with a clipboard. She was new first-time delivering to Bayfield. She glanced around, confused. Usually someone's already at the dock. I'll take it, Kellan said. He signed off and unloaded the crates. Maribel watched from the prep table. You always step in, even now. I don't ask people to do things I won't. She tilted her head. You think the other stores are like this? Some better, some worse, but not enough like this. Later, during a short lull, Kellan pulled everyone together at the back. I want to be clear, what you've been through here wasn't acceptable. The previous manager's conduct violated our standards, and the oversight that allowed him to stay in place? That's on me. No one spoke. Kellan continued. Here's what's changing. First, Maribel's interim title is permanent. She's now store manager. Maribel blinked. What? You earned it. You've been managing without the title for months. Now you'll have the pay, the support, and the authority. There was a ripple of quiet surprise among the team. Second, Kellan continued, we're implementing a rotating wellness check-in. Every employee gets a one-on-one every 4 weeks. Not just performance reviews, actual check-ins. You'll be heard. Lena looked up. Is that just for Bayfield?
For now.
But if it works, it expands. Malik raised a hand. What about hours? We still short. We'll be hiring 2 more part-timers. And we're adjusting shift caps, so no one's pulling doubles unless they request them. Tyrese asked, what about pay? Kellan nodded. Bayfield's base wage is increasing by 15%. That starts next cycle. Maribel's expression was unreadable. This real? As real as it gets. When the meeting ended, no one rushed out. They lingered quietly, cleaning, restocking, checking inventory side by side. Kellan stepped back and watched. After closing, he stayed behind with Maribel in the office. She leaned against the desk. Can I ask something? Sure. What made you finally come down here? He hesitated. I saw camera footage. You gave away your lunch. No hesitation. She looked down. I don't like people going hungry. I know. But it wasn't just that. You didn't do it for anyone to see. You just did it. And I realized. I hadn't seen that kind of integrity in a long time. She didn't respond right away. Then she said, I almost quit the day before you arrived. I had my resignation typed out. What changed? You showed up. Kellan nodded once. I won't disappear again. She stepped back into the hallway and flipped off the lights. As they walked out together, the wind had picked up. Cold but not biting. Just enough to remind you it was still winter. At the curb, Kellan paused. You know, when I started this company, I thought culture meant free sodas and a vision statement. Maribel raised an eyebrow. Doesn't it? It means people. And who you trust when you're not in the room. She gave a small nod. Then trust better next time. I will. They parted without ceremony. No handshake. No promises spoken aloud. But as the Bayfield lights dimmed behind him, Kellan knew this store wasn't just fixed, it was the new blueprint. Not for expansion, not for PR, but for something more important. A business that remembered why it existed in the first place.